So good afternoon, all. And I'm Dave Nash, Associate Professor of Strategy and a lead faculty with Fox Management Consulting. I'm joined today by Jeff Bruno, founder and CEO of your Outsourced CFO. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Join us.
Thank you, David.
And Jeff, I wondered if you would just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company.
Sure. So our company is your Outsourced CFO, Yo CFO for short. We were started in 2013. Saw the economy sort of moving towards this, over the last 15, 20 years, much more outsourced support model. And we pride ourselves on helping companies, with their financial strategy to get through crises like these and then battle and get back towards growth. I myself am GW, George Washington University graduate, and a Temple Fox MBA alum. Worked with TL Hill and on the capstone course, who is on this, and glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Great. Well, I know you work with a lot of smaller companies, and the critically important small business segment is so important to us now. How have you prepared your clients for, in an upmarket, for a potential downturn, maybe not of this magnitude, but a downturn? And how have they responded to the downturn? Sure.
So we work with companies sort of in the $1 million to $20 million range, which, like you said, Dave, is the bulk of a lot of the U.S. small business these days. And we consistently look forward with them. So what we're doing is we're trying to manage what they're doing to plan to keep their businesses in growing mode or stay ahead of downturns and so on. So we will typically recommend things and look at projections of 20% decrease in sales, 50% decrease in sales. What happens to your business? How do you maintain your business? How do you keep it alive? How do you then come back from that downturn? What's your capital situation look like to do that? And a lot of the times, because these are a lot of pass-through entities, a lot comes to, so what's your personal capital situation? Because if this business were to run out of steam and you weren't allowed to take any cash for yourself, could you sustain? That's a real important thing that we dive into with business owners when asking them how they could weather a storm is, can they personally weather it? And even more so, if their business is not available, it can't get leverage in the markets, can they put additional capital back into the business to support it back towards growth? So those are different types of scenarios that we'll do sort of when we, after a few months of being engaged with them, we start looking at those possibilities.
And so as you're looking at those and making sure they have the wherewithal to withstand these kinds of downturns in sales and revenue, how have they responded to your advice and suggestions, as well as in this market condition today? How have they been able to respond?
So we are dealing with entrepreneurs. I mean, and entrepreneurs as a bunch are good. They're interesting too. There's typically there's a lot of ego sometimes with entrepreneurs, good and bad. They could be generally a little bit more riskier. So entrepreneurs being founders and owners of businesses than the norm. So they think they're invincible sometimes. They think that their way is the best way. And when you try to be a little conservative or say, well, why don't you put a little bit of this over here for the bad times, sometimes you get pushback. No, I want to grow. I want to keep growing, and I want to, push forward. And that's great. But that's why the personal liquidity and the leverage comes into play. We do get pushback often from owners. I'll give you a good example if that's the right time for it. But
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be helpful.
Sure. So we had an engagement in about 2 years now. They're a specialty food retailer, and they were adamant about supporting their employees and paying them, having extra employees because they love the, supporting the economy and the local employees and so on. And that's all well and good. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that was one of their major issues, is that they were way overexpensed for their business. And there's only so much pricing you can do in that model. I mean, you have consumers you're selling to, so you max out at a certain point on what you can price to get your margin. So from the very beginning, we noticed that as a problem, and we started to address it and got big pushback on that. Very big pushback. So here's my counter to that, to all the business owners that want to support their employees. That is absolutely critical in our economy forever and ongoing. Your employees are your best resource and will always be. I'm a big proponent of it. However, your business needs to be profitable. If your business is not profitable, you can't support your employees effectively. So strategies we recommend for that is make your business profitable. And then when you have extra money, if you're very generous and you want to give it to them as bonuses at the end of the year, or, and your employees will appreciate it if you have some money for the downturns so you can keep them around and they'll stick with you as well. So those are kind of the ways that we recommend people. You got to think about the business because the business supports the employees. So
have they, just out of curiosity, how have they been able to manage through this most recent downturn?
So that's a great question, Dave. So they had to close, ordered by the governor, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So they had to close. So all operations were shut down. So they laid off everybody. And it was the right move. And so now they're finally seeing that they really need to essentially hire back 55, 60% of the people that they had on their payroll when they reopened, to be able to sustain their business model. It brought realization to them. A crisis did. So to your point, they don't listen all the time to their advisors. So what we do when that happens is we navigate with them. So we look at other avenues of support. We say, well, cut over here. Can you cut over here? Can you put personal money in? Yeah, I'll put personal money in. So that's, if we don't get them to move on one thing, we try to position it in another way.
Have any of the liquidity obviously is critical, and we hear about it all the time on the news now in particular, but your comments about making sure they have adequate liquidity to get through the rough spots is critically important. Have any of your clients thrived in this downturn? Or any of them happen to be uniquely positioned to pick up on this?
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at our client base when we hit this crisis, and we said, sort of, what's our average liquidity of our client base? And it looks like some are, some as small as 2 or 3 weeks, and some, at 3-4 months. We had an average of about 1.5 months of liquidity, which in this crisis is not a lot. So we're reevaluating some of our process as well to emphasize more liquidity. But when I mean liquidity, and I'll get your point about succeeding companies, what I mean liquidity is not necessarily cash just sitting there, but money from banks. When banks, they'll lend you money when you don't need it, right? It's the same old story. So getting those lines in place, getting those things ready for something like this, or just a regular downturn, so you have that extra ability to come back over a 6-9 month period. But we do have businesses that have had just enough liquidity, and they're being surprised by some opportunity. So they're deemed essential. We have a remediation and hazardous hauling company that is deemed essential. They also are very flexible and creative, and can develop quick processes. They developed COVID cleaning teams. And they're going to see a 40% increase in their revenue due to COVID cleaning teams over the next 6 months. So there are companies, of course, in those kind of areas that are excelling. And we had a manufacturer that was questioning whether to maintain the business or not due to sort of stagnant sales. They sell mops and cleaning supplies. So they're doing pretty well right now.
Get lucky on that one.
Yeah. So,
Jeff, as you look forward in I'll call it, from both a short-term and a long-term perspective around structural changes post this pandemic and the kind of the new normal. What do you foresee, and what are you advising your clients to be prepared for, or to get organized to be prepared for?
Well, what's clear here, then this crisis is definitely elucidating it, is that technology is important for your business. Ever so in this environment, make sure you have your technology process set up right. You have your Zoom capabilities. You have your stuff stored in the cloud. You have your employees can access the materials. I think this is just sort of awakening the world, especially the United States, to the idea that the technology is available and we need to use it effectively. So we're advocating for that big time. And letting your key resources who support you be able to access your information as well, so you can be nimble in this environment. We're saying to a lot of our manufacturing clients, if a piece of equipment that you were hesitating on can improve your efficiency, then let's buy that piece of equipment. Let's come out of this with a solid efficiency structure. So a tight labor market or a not tight labor or a hard to find, either scenario, you could get through with better technology. Also we're seeing that there's going to be less travel probably in the next 9 months, maybe even 18 months. So people get used to this. Probably less events, less gatherings. So I think there'll be new revenue streams that come out of this. People will know how to monetize if you're smart, an entrepreneur, and you can figure out some ways to take what you do and put it more online and monetize it. We're recommending things like that. There's plenty of ways to do it, but you got to think outside the box. That's one thing that we also emphasize to everybody consistently is we're not here to just do the normal. We want you to think creatively and outside the box, and we'll support you with the financial tools to make it happen. So,
well, I'm sure your clients will be certainly more aware of the access to capital to make sure they have more than 4 to 6 weeks worth of liquidity in their business. And it sounds like from what you're saying, their agility and creativity, as evidenced by a couple of your current clients, every problem is an opportunity embedded in there for some of them. So that's very encouraging. So, yes. Well, Jeff, we really appreciate your insights and your thoughts. We have a lot of confidence based on some of your comments about the opportunity that the small businesses, which are so critical to us, will create.